الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Today inshallah we continue the book by Imam TIRMIDI, Kitab al-SHAMAIL, the description of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We are up to hadith number 6 in the second section. Buraidah bin Hasib radiallahu anhu reports, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came to Medina, Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu brought a tray which had fresh dates on it. So the Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu brought a tray which had fresh dates on it and presented it to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked Salman, "What dates are these?" So Salman radiallahu anhu replied, "This is sadaqah for you and your companions." The Prophet ﷺ said, "We do not eat sadaqah. Remove it from me." So when he ﷺ said, "We do not eat sadaqah," scholars had different opinions. Did he mean him ﷺ and the other prophets, which is the most correct opinion, or did he mean him and Ahlul Bayt, which is also true, but in this context it wouldn't be the correct opinion, because the Prophet ﷺ and Ahlul Bayt were the wives of the Prophet ﷺ and the descendants of Al-Abbas radiallahu anhu, Ja'far al-Tayyar, Aqil, him ﷺ, and Al-Abbas. So the lineage from these five men, in addition to the wives of the Prophet ﷺ, is who are considered Ahlul Bayt. Sadaqah is forbidden to them. Zakat also forbidden to them. They're not allowed to take it, but they can partake in al-khumus, which is the fifth of the war booty. Okay, because as is mentioned in the Quran, when the Muslims fight the enemies of Allah and conquer them, they are allowed to take war booty. And actually, this is not something that's peculiar to Islam. Actually, it was with the other religions as well. The only difference is that Muslims are allowed to consume this booty of war and they're allowed to take it. The other religions, they had to gather the booty of war, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would send a fire or a lightning to burn up that booty of war. But this is an exception that was made to this ummah, as mentioned in Surah Al-Anfal chapter 8. So the war booty, a fifth of it goes to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to Ahlul Bayt, the people who belong to the five people that we mentioned before. So obviously, it is used for charity, etc. So that's the fifth of the war booty. But as far as sadaqah is concerned, charity, they're not allowed to partake in that charity. So Salman radiallahu anhu gave these dates to the Prophet ﷺ as a means to test him. Because as you will see later, Salman radiallahu anhu learned about the qualities of the Prophet ﷺ from the Christians, from some Christian monks that he used to serve. So the Prophet ﷺ is mentioned by name and also by qualities in the previous books. But obviously, because the other religions, many of the people in charge of it want only the worldly benefit, they hide or they misconstrue these descriptions for them to mean that they belong to Isa alayhi salam or someone else. But in any event, so Salman radiallahu anhu gave this charity to the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ said, "We don't take charity." It means prophets. Prophets don't take charity, but they take a gift, as we will see. On the next day, Salman radiallahu anhu again brought a tray of fresh dates to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ asked him, "What are these?" So Salman radiallahu anhu said, "This is a present for you, O Prophet of Allah. This is a present for you." So the Prophet ﷺ said to the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, "Help yourselves." So help yourselves. So he let the Sahaba partake in that gift of dates, and he ﷺ also ate from those dates. Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu was a learned person of the old days. That means he had knowledge of the Bible. He lived for approximately 150 years, and according to some other reports, he lived up to 300 years. So he had seen the signs of the Prophet ﷺ in the books of the previous prophets. That he ﷺ, one of his qualities is that he will not accept sadaqah, but shall accept presents and gifts. And Salman radiallahu also read that the seal of prophethood will be between his shoulders, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So after Salman witnessed the first two signs, which is the fact that the Prophet ﷺ does not accept charity and that he accepts presents, he looked for the third sign, which is the seal of prophethood. So at the time that these things were happening, Salman radiallahu anhu was a slave of a Jew person from the tribe of Banu Qurayza. So Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu, we will see how he became a slave, and he became a slave unjustly. But in any event, at that point, he was a slave to a Jew from Banu Qurayza. The Prophet ﷺ told Salman to buy back his freedom from the Jew. This is called mukatab. Okay, and this is something that's in the Quran as well, that if a slave wants to buy himself, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encourages you to allow him to buy back his freedom. And obviously, slavery existed in the old days in Judaism and Christianity and in Islam, and it was only abolished in the past 100 years or so. But of course, slavery for Muslims was different from the slavery for the Christians. As you know, the Christians went to Africa, and then basically they put a lot of those people to difficult tests, and those that were able to withstand those harsh tests and not die, they brought them as slaves to the US. And many of those slaves were actually Muslims, as is documented in the Library of Congress. Slavery in Islam is not taken like this. Actually, a lot of the slaves in Islam are white, because they were taken through jihad. Slavery in Islam is established through jihad. So when the Muslim army conquers a certain disbelieving country that did not want to accept the first two choices, which is either accept Islam, become Muslims, rule according to Allah's religion. This is the most important criteria. And then if of course a country becomes a Muslim, then they keep whatever they have, and there's going to be no war between them. They're going to become the brothers of other Muslims. Second option is for them to accept, to rule according to Allah's religion in that country, and to give the poll tax, which is jizya. This is the second best option. Third option is for war to break out between them. And the reason for this is that usually in any disbelieving society, whether a long time ago or even nowadays, there's always a certain small number of people who are ruling the masses and are benefiting from the fact that these masses are not on Allah's path, because they get to abuse them and use them. So not only that, but they bring a bad image to Islam. So they don't let the people adhere to the correct religion of Islam, because most people in those lands, if you ask them about Islam, they'll tell you some bad image about it. Just like what's happening today in the West with these movies. It goes back from the 80s, from Delta Force to Rambo to Black Hawk Down. They always portray themselves as being the victims, even though they are the ones who are invading these Muslim countries, and always depicting the Muslims as being the aggressors. So obviously, many people who are not Muslims are averse to Islam. So they think that Islam is something that it is not. And this is the reason for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala legislating for the Muslims, for them to spread Islam. But of course, there are some conditions. Muslims have to be powerful. They have to have a leader. They have to fight under a banner. They have to have 10 times as many soldiers as the other enemy, etc. And this is, obviously, if someone says this is not a good thing, we tell him that this is actually the way that this belief is being spread today in the world. this belief today is being spread in the world through the sword. So basically, any country that declares that they are Islamically ruled and they use Sharia, the West invades them, takes them out, and they put puppet governments who will let the Westerners plunder the resources of that country under the pretext that they are bringing democracy. So basically, they are imposing their way of this belief on the Muslims with the sword. So it's just normal for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to legislate that for the Jews, for the Christians, and for the Muslims. Because as human beings, as Uthman radiallahu anhu said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can instill with the sword that which he cannot instill with the Quran. So many people, you may give them an advice, right? Just like, let's give small example. The speed limit. There are laws for speed limits, okay? Now, if you go above the speed limit, what is the reaction of the governments? Is to punish you, give you a ticket, or in some instances, if you're 50 kilometers more than the speed limit, they tow away your cars, $10,000 fine, they take away your license. So this is how human beings are. Basically, the laws are there. If you follow them, so be it. If you don't follow them, you get punished. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created mankind. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just legislated this for the good of mankind. For the good of mankind, this is how the companion, the name serves, my memory serves correctly, is Ibri radiallahu anhu, when they went to Persia, the Persians told them, why do you come and invade us? Why don't you just let us live in peace? So he told them, we came to take out the slaves, that means the slaves of Allah, from worshiping other slaves like them, human beings, to worshiping the Lord of the slaves, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is not to say that, Islam is there so that, people can be killed or something. No, but actually this is for the benefit of the people. So if we take examples, for example, Islam has reached the western limit of the known land, which is Morocco, and to the eastern limit of China. Now, all of us here, they are not from the land of Arabia. We're not from Medina and from Mecca. So we ask ourselves, now, would you prefer that Islam would have reached you by any means, or would you prefer that someone from your tribe had remained a disbeliever and taken advantage of you as a human being? Of course, any good-minded Muslim will say, of course, we accept the fact that Islam has reached us, right? So if I take my example, I'm from Morocco. Okay, the Berbers were the inhabitants of Morocco. They were polytheists, and they fought the Muslims when they brought Islam to them. Now, do you think I'm going to be on the side of my forefathers who were polytheists, or do you think I'm going to be on the side of the Muslims who brought us this salvation, this great religion, for us to be saved in this during the hereafter? Of course, the answer is simple. Okay, so therefore, this legislation of spreading Islam is something for the goodness of mankind, and only a few people who are in the top echelon are the ones who do not benefit from this dogma of spreading Islam into other countries. Nowadays, of course, we can't say that. We are weak as Muslims. We can't even defend our own borders. So we're not talking about something that's happening currently. But slavery, back to the point, because Salman al-Farisi was a slave, slavery back then was taken through these wars. So if a Kafir country decides to take the third choice and war breaks out, then when they are defeated, they are taken as slaves. And obviously, Muslims were also taken as slaves. So this is not peculiar to Muslims only. When the other disbelieving armies invaded Muslims, they also take slaves among the Muslims. So it's not something that only Muslims were doing it. This was normal back then. Okay, so just we have to know the truth, and we have to accept it, because this is how it is. Okay, this is how the world was, and this is how the legislation was. So Salman al-Farisi was a slave of a Jew at the time, and he sallallahu alaihi wasallam told him to buy back his freedom. And that's by planting 300 palm trees for the Jew and taking care of these palm trees until they bear fruits. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ planted these palm trees with his own hands, except one. Okay, so he ﷺ planted these trees out of season and with his own hands, and yet they bore fruits the same year, except for one palm tree, which was planted by Umar radiallahu anhu, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not put the same miracle in this one tree, did not bear fruits. So he sallallahu asked who planted this tree. It was said it's Umar radiallahu anhu, and it did not bear fruit. So he sallallahu replaced it with another tree that he planted with his own hands. And then 300 palm trees bore fruits, and Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu obtained his freedom. The Prophet ﷺ also gave him some gold to pay back the Jew for him to be free. Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu is from among the greatest Sahaba. It is stated in the hadith that is narrated in Sahih Muslim that when this ayah in chapter 38, Surah Muhammad, was revealed. There is a surah in the Quran called Surah Muhammad, and in it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا يَسْتَبْدِلْ قَوْمًا غَيْرَكُمْ ثُمَّ لَا يَكُونُوا أَمْثَالَكُمْ. وَإِن تَتَوَلَّوْا, that means if you turn back on this religion, O you Muslims, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will replace you with other people, and they are not going to be like you. So when people turn their backs on the religion is not hurt, because the religion is Allah's religion and Allah is protecting it. It's the people who are hurt, the people that turn their backs on the religion that are hurt. There are two ayahs like this in the Quran. This one in Surah Muhammad and another one in Surah At-Tawbah. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when he revealed this verse, the Prophet ﷺ was asked by the companions and said, O Prophet of Allah, who are these people who will take our place? Who are these people that will take our place? So he, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, patted Sayyidina Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu on his back and said, I swear by the name of the being in whose hands lie my life, if Iman, faith, was suspended on the Thuraya means the high stars, the people of Faris would have taken it from there also. We have to pause with this hadith, right? Because we have to put it in the context of what happened in the past year and a half. So the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah will replace you with the people of this guy, Salman radiallahu anhu, the force, right? Now we all agree that the Shia are one of the 72 deviant sects, right? They're not deviant in every aspect, as we know. This is what I mean of deviant sect is, right? They are still Muslims, according to the non-Saudi scholars. Okay, Saudi scholars give the American fatwa, but according to the Salaf, like Abdullah bin Mubarak radiallahu anhu, he said that the 72 sects originate in 4 major sects. Each one of them is gonna spring out 18 deviant sects. One of them is a Shia, one is a Khawarij, one is a Murji'a, and one is Shia, Khawarij, Murji'a, and Qadariyah. These are 4 major sects. Each one of them is going to have 18 deviant sects. So the Shia is one of the deviant Muslim sects. That means it deviated in certain aspects. And he sallallahu, I mean, this is in Sahih Muslim. Nobody can negotiate or say that this hadith is not true. But actually, I saw this with my own eyes, and I personally changed my opinion. I used to adhere to the opinion of the Saudi scholars who were paid by the Americans to give fatwa against the Shia so that the Sunnah can fight against the Shia and they can kill each other. And then the Americans, they come and defeat whomever is left because they are too weak, right? Because if you look at the Khilafah that existed before 1929, Khilafah al-Uthmaniyya, al-Abbasiyya, Amawiyya, they were Sunnis and Shia. The Shia basically happened right after the killing of al-Husayn radiallahu anhu. But we never heard about the Sunnis and Shia going into these wars, killing millions of people. And if we go back to the Quran, this is also not recommended by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا لَسْتَ مِنْهُمْ فِي شَيْءٍ. Those that divide their religions and turned into Shia, that means sects. You are not one of them, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not recommended. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَكُونُوا مِنَ الْمُشْرِكِينَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ فَرَّقُوا دِينَهُمْ وَكَانُوا شِيَعًا. O Muslims, do not be among the people who have divided their religion into sects, and each sect is happy with whatever way they have. كُلُّ حِزْبٍ بِمَا لَدَيْهِمْ فَرِحُونَ. Everybody says we are rightly guided. So, the 72 sects, how should they interact with each other? Not with the sword, not with killing each other, because they are still considered Muslims according to the scholars. they should interact with each other in munadarat. Basically, each sect gives the proof that they have. The proof is what? Is Quran and Sunnah, right? But do not kill each other because you are Muslims. وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Adhere to Allah's rope, which is the rope of Islam, and do not be divided. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says, which is what's happening today, وَلَا تَنَازَعُوا فَتَفْشَلُوا وَتَذْهَبَ رِيحُكُمْ وَاصْبِرُوا. Do not fight amongst yourselves. Do not fight among yourselves. And then you're going to fashal, you're going to be weak, and have patience. Because the Muslims are killing each other, the West is acting like a lion. You know, when Muawiyah radiallahu anhu had a problem with Ali radiallahu anhu, the Christian king at the time thought that he was going to be able to take advantage of the situation. And he actually invaded some of the outskirts of the Muslim land at the time. So Muawiyah radiallahu anhu sent him a letter, tell him, listen to me, you dog of the Christians. If you don't back off, me and my cousin, that means Ali, will make peace and we will come against you. He got scared and he ran away. Because the Muslims, you have to understand, there's a ruling. Muslims can never be defeated by the disbelievers. وَلَنْ يَجْعَلَ اللَّهُ لِلْكَافِرِينَ عَلَى الْمُؤْمِنِينَ سَبِيلًا. لَنْ Nafi. Muslims are only defeated when the infighting happens. They bring the hypocrites, they make trouble between the Muslims, they start killing each other, and then the victor is too weak to defend itself against the other group. And this is what happened between the army of Ali radiallahu anhu and the army of Aisha radiallahu anha. They actually agreed to make peace. But those Khawarij that caused the fitna in Medina and killed Uthman radiallahu anhu thought to themselves, if these groups make peace, we're going to be in trouble, we're going to be killed. So at night, each section among them in the other army started attacking the other army. So Aisha radiallahu anha's army thought, oh, Ali's army betrayed us. Ali radiallahu anha's army thought, oh, Aisha's army betrayed us. And then the fighting started happening between the Muslims. And it's only because these Khawarij that caused the fitna. So the Muslims, we should not fight with each other. Because if we look at last year and a half, the reason why I had to look again in some of things I was convinced about, who was supporting our brothers in Palestine? It was the Shia in Lebanon, it was the Shia in Yemen, and also some in Iran. Some people, they're gonna, not Iran, I mean Iraq and in Syria. Some people are gonna say, well, this is politics, this is taqiyya, this is, I tell you, do the same thing. Do politics, do taqiyya, and support our brothers in Palestine. Don't let them die. The Sunnis actually helped the Jews directly. Because when the Shia Zaydiyyin in Yemen stopped the resources from reaching the Jews, how did they get their means of livelihood, these Jews? A land bridge. If somebody does not know what I'm talking about, you're not living in this world. And you must know this. You must know this. This is the biggest betrayal of the Mujahideen of this century. The Emiratis, Saudis, and Jordanians established a land bridge to bring whatever the Houthis stopped the Jews from receiving. And then you come and tell me there are deviant sect, there are taqiyya, they are in collusion with what the Saudi scholars used to tell us is that the Shia are actually in bed with the Jews and the Americans in reality, but outwardly they're showing that they're enemies. Well, I tell them, have some decency like them and do that in hiding. Don't do it outwardly. These people are doing it outwardly. They're outwardly bringing food and help and support to the Jews. The U.S. sent a load of weapons from the U.S. to occupied Palestine by ship. The ship had to refuel. They went to Spain. Spain did not want to refuel them. They are kuffar, but they are better than the despots that are ruling us. What did this ship get refueled? In Morocco. Morocco, who call themselves Sunnis, who have Amir al-Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers, are the ones who helped this ship reach a destination of Palestine and kill our brothers. Now, if this does not make you think and rethink once again what we are hearing, what these people are telling us, I mean, Allah's trying to give us a brain. You know, I can't cover my eyes and say that I don't see the light because I just covered my eyes. I see things, right? So there are deviant in some things. Some people say, oh, well, they cursed the Sahaba. Okay, Hassan Nasrallah, specifically said, because I started looking. I have a brain and I have ears and I understand things. I don't need some scholar to come and tell me, that guy is a kuffar. Because Medina has Saudi Shia living in Medina. If they were kuffar, they wouldn't be allowed to live there. And they make hajj. So how can you let kuffar make hajj? So, basically, their fatwa actually are contradictory. When the Taliban were fighting the Russians for the benefit of the Americans, they were calling for jihad all over the world, in Canada, in the US, in Morocco, everywhere. Jihad, jihad, jihad. When Russia got defeated and the Americans invaded, all of a sudden the same Taliban started becoming a deviant sect. I'm like, hang on a second, am I really that stupid? I mean, there are some things that you need common sense, you don't need the fatwa for it, right? The same people, because they are fighting now the leader of the Saudis, all of a sudden they became a deviant sect and they became Khawarij and they became terrorists and they defended their own countries the same way they defended their countries against the Russians. Same thing happened in Serbia. When the Serbs attacked the Muslims in Bosnia, of course the Serbs with Russia and Bosnians are with the Americans. So the Saudi scholars, jihad, 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 jihad. But then when it comes to Palestine, that's a deviant sect. Hamas, they are with the Shia. I mean, come on. Until when are these people going to think that we are stupid? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not make us worship our scholars. This is what's different between the Muslims and the Jews and Christians. We don't worship scholars. If a scholar brings us the truth with dalil, with the evidence, we follow him. If he does not, he's just a human being. The Prophet ﷺ is the one that used to receive revelation. After him, anybody is able to make mistakes. Therefore, the Prophet ﷺ, when he said this, we have to think about it. The past year and a half, the only ones supporting our brothers, the Mujahideen, were the Shia. Yeah, they are deviant in some aspects, but in other aspects they are right. The Sunnis nowadays, they are deviant in many aspects. If you go to the Sunni land, alcohol, zina openly, interest, masajid, they only talk about two subjects. Make wudu and give zakat, give money. If you are to tell someone to not drink alcohol openly, they take you to jail. Okay? If you were to insult the Prophet ﷺ, they tell it's freedom of expression. These are the Sunni land that we are talking about today. So therefore, we have to reconsider the preconceived notions that we had about this thing and go back to the Quran and the Sunnah. The Quran and the Sunnah is that Muslims have to be one single ummah. Why did they, in your opinion, why do you think they concentrated on the Shia only? I mean, there are 72 sects. Why only the Shia are the evil ones? Why are the ones that are talking about them? Because they are the ones who are a danger to the enemies of Islam. They don't talk about Murji'ah, they don't talk about Khawarij, they don't talk about, So this is something. So Prophet ﷺ did say that if you Muslims turn your backs on this religion, Allah will replace you. And he said, the people of Salman al-Farisi. This is not something I said. It's he ﷺ that said, it's in Sahih Muslim. So no one can confuse himself about the authenticity of this hadith. So we're going to summarize. This is a long hadith, in 2 minutes. So Salman al-Farisi, basically, how did he become a Muslim? He was in what's today Iran, Persia. He was a Zoroastrian. Zoroastrians actually, according to what they said, they had a prophet called Zoroaster that came to them and called them to Tawheed. Okay, so basically Zoroastrians, the Sahaba considered them Ahlul Kitab. When they conquered Iran, they accepted the jizya from them. So the Sahaba considered that the Zoroastrians are Ahlul Kitab. So he was from among them, and his father was used to tend to the temple of the Zoroastrians. He sent him once to go run an errand, and he went inside a Christian church, and he liked what he heard there. He stayed there all day. When he came back at night to his father, he told him what happened. He said, I was all day in a Christian church, and I liked that. So his father basically put chains on him so that Salman al-Farisi does not become a Christian. So Salman al-Farisi radiallahu anhu sent word to the Christians telling them, if you know a caravan that's going to Palestine, because that was the seat of Christianity at that point, inform me so that I can go with them. And lo and behold, some caravan was going. He broke the chains and he went with them. So he left his father, his family members. He went to Jerusalem. He served a Christian monk. This first Christian monk was an evil guy. He used to tell people to give charity, but then he used that money for himself. So he always kept that money and stored treasure. But after he died, another Christian guy replaced him, and he was much better than him. When that Christian monk was dying, Salman al-Farisi asked him, what am I going to go after you? He told him to go to another Christian monk. He went to him. When that Christian monk was also dying, he asked him, who do I go to next after you? He said, another Christian monk. And then when that Christian monk was dying, told him, who do I go to? He said, there's going to be a prophet of the latter days, he's gonna immigrate to a city that has a lot of palm trees and it is surrounded with stony land, which is Medina, basically. So he said okay, and basically when he was working, he collected some money and he had some cattle. So there was a caravan going to the land of Arabia. He told them, how about you take me with you to the land of Arabia? I'm going to give you the cattle as a recompense, as a payment for you taking me with you. They said okay. When they got to the land of Arabia, they took away his cattle and they sold him as a slave. Basically, he wasn't a slave, but these guys sold him as a slave to a Jew that had come from Medina to Mecca. Look, subhanAllah, when Allah wants to guide someone, He brought him from Persia, all through all these things, these Christian markets, all the way to Medina. Subhanallah. So the Jew bought him from Mecca, took him back to Medina, and that's when he met the Prophet ﷺ. And then when he saw the seal of prophethood, one of the brothers asked me, he said, why does the Prophet ﷺ need to have a seal of prophethood since we know in the Quran that he's a prophet? I told him it's because of the other religions, because he ﷺ is mentioned by name and also by qualities in the other religions, so that's easier for them to believe in him when they recognize the qualities that they read in their own books. This is normal, right? I mean, if you read something about something and you go like, oh yeah, so this is what I read about. So it's easier for you to accept this truth. It's difficult to accept that someone is a prophet. So this is how he became a companion, and this is how he became a slave. And then after that, he freed himself, and he lived up to 150 years. This is it for today. Jazakumullah khair for your patience. I'm sorry if I sometimes go outside the religion to politics, but you have to understand, in Islam, it's all one and the same. Islam is in every aspect of our lives. We're not going to do like the what do you call them, the secularists, where they divide the religion from the rule, etc. That's not, Islam is who you are with everything. Politics, ibadah, everything. So do you have any questions, brothers? Or yes, brother Malik.
How do you reconcile Salahuddin attacking the Shias before Jerusalem?
There is a lot of narrations out there that are put out by the people that want to divide the Muslims. And I always advise my brothers for them to check the authenticity of these narrations before they believe in them. Because I also read that, it is actually the Shia that allowed the Christians to attack Jerusalem at the time of the Extra. All these are fabrications. The same way that some of the Shia fabricate things, by the way. It's no one is an angel. The same way they fabricate things, there's also some they may not be Muslims, but there are people who have at heart that they need to divide the Muslims. So yeah, Salah ad-Din Ayyubi, if you have that narration is authentic, then share it with me, please. And last thing is, Mahdi Muntadara comes, inshallah, there's going to be no Sunnah or Shia. Everybody's going to follow him. So this tells you that this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to be. Okay?